I am so lucky and pleased to be here in Alentejo at the estate of Esporão. Thank you so much for having me and for putting up with my horrible pronunciation.
No, it's great to have you. And you said it very well.
Thank you. So this region of Portugal has been a wine producer for so long, and yet it's not as well known outside of Portugal. Tell us a little bit about the Alentejo region.
Alentejo is almost a third of Portugal, so it's a big region. But inside that big region, there's 7 DOC regions that are classified. Our history in terms of wine comes back from the Romans. The Romans were here. They brought agriculture. They brought winemaking, and then from there, there's quite a dramatic story coming from through the centuries until today. There was someone who owned a land here called Papança, who distributed a lot of vines between the people that live here. They replanted the vineyards after the phylloxera.
You know, when people think of Portugal, they think of port, first of all, and then perhaps Vinho Verde. Do you think that because this region is still building its history back, that perhaps now is the time for people to start paying attention?
Well, I think that's what will bring attention to Alentejo in the international markets will be the same that put Alentejo on the map in Portugal. Alentejo has 40% of market share in Portugal. So it's pretty much the region where all that we produce, we bottle and we sell.
I heard that Portuguese people drink 99.7% Portuguese wines, which means it seems like you're keeping it all to yourselves.
It's true, it's true. And we have a per capita. We used to be one of the countries, we used to have 78 liters per capita of wine in the 80s, and then we came back to 46, which is more reasonable.
Yeah.
But wine is pretty much a thing that defines our culture and defines the region where we're in.
And for people who aren't familiar with these wines, can you describe them for those who say, I haven't tried this yet? You know, what is it reminiscent of? What would it remind people of for wines that perhaps they're more familiar with?
They have something going for them, which is they're not easily, I would say, recognizable. So they are exotic. That's the thing about Portugal. We have 250 grape varieties. We blend these varieties in our own way to make things that make sense to us, that go well with our food. So they're pretty much exotic wines, I would say.
They're hard to compare.
They're hard to compare. When you go and and if I have to describe these wines, they're obviously wines that come from a region that it's in the south of Europe. You know, so we have a lot of sun here. We have a lot of dryness here. We have an average of 400, 500 liters per square meter of rainfall per year. If you go below 300, it's desertic, so it's not a lot of rain.
It's very dry soil.
Very dry soil. The soils are very weak, so they pour, so the productions are low. So the wines tend to be opulent, they tend to be structure driven. Some of grape varieties are fruit driven. We're always looking for acidity here because of course we are in the southern part of Europe. But I think the most special thing about them is their opulence, is their character.
What makes this region so unique from a temperature climate perspective?
Well, I think there's something very important, which is the extension of the region. And the small density of population that we have here is the most laid-back region in Portugal. It varies a lot when you go closer to the sea, where you have the Atlantic and you have beautiful beaches and more humidity and less colder temperatures. And then when you start going to the interior towards Spain, where you have more drier climate like we have in here.
And one of the things that's also interesting, you mentioned the grapes. There's a lot of varietals here, a lot of grapes that people might not be familiar with. And here at Esporão, you do a few single varietals. Talk a little bit about some of the ones that you think are most special for people who maybe aren't familiar with some of these Portuguese grapes. Where should they begin? What are a few of the ones that you would choose?
Yeah, for us, we struggle with that, especially in the U.S. market, because Americans tend to choose their wines for variety.
Yeah.
So Portugal, what we have going for us is the fact that we have 250 Portuguese varieties,
Right.
and we always tend to mix them together.
Right.
So when we go to the US and they ask,
You say, what grape?
What
Yeah.
grape? And we have, what?
It's complicated.
It's complicated. So here in Esporão, for example,
Yeah.
we have around 40 grape varieties that we planted. And we planted them because of the soils, different styles of wine we want to do. But if you ask me what are the baseline and most fundamental grape varieties here, on the reds, I would say that it's Alicante Boucher, which is one of the bases of this wine. I would say Aragonês, which is the cousin of the Tempranillo that in the US is being very well promoted by the Spanish.
Right.
You'll find the Tinta Origem da Douro, which is the same variety also, so it's pretty much the same variety. We have Trincadeira, which is a beautiful variety that has a lot of, lower concentration, but has wines that can age and has beautiful fruit.
That's been my favorite by far. Yeah.
Yes, we're actually having a Trincadeira single variety now that it's going to be on the US market now. On the whites, we have grape varieties like Roupeiro, Anton Vaz and Rinto. And these three are the varieties that you'll find, for example, in that blend. That are varieties that we use for blending because one of them will bring complexity, the other one will bring structure.
So look to the region and look to the blend rather than just to the grape.
Yes, yes.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for giving us this insight and for having us here in your amazing vineyard. It's so appreciated. Cheers
Thank
and
you very
thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Cheers.